Alright, so today we're going to do some wheel bearings on this 2005 Kia. It's been making a humming sound for a little while, and we've diagnosed it to find that is going to be the bearings. So we'll pull the bearings apart. We'll pull the wheel off, pull the bearing out, replace that, and put it all back together again. Let's go. Alright, so we've taken off the tyre, we've put the wheel underneath the front for a bit of safety. I've still got the jack underneath here. I've got a jack stand underneath the car as well, supporting it, and I've also got wheel chocks at the back. So just make sure that you've got all these safety aspects in place before you go and get anything done. Now the next thing we've got to do is take off the brake caliper. And that's just a couple of 17mm bolts, which we'll just get off here. Try not to hit your head on anything because it hurts. Whenever we're doing a job like this, where we're working on the front wheels in some way, shape or form, I'm always going to check the brake discs and the brake pads to make sure that they're functional and there's plenty of meat left on them as well. And I'll just show you that here in a minute. Okay, so just 2 bolts. Shouldn't be that tight. Okay, so we just have a quick look at the brake pads. And there's heaps of meat left on those brake pads. They're in good condition. We did replace them recently, but it's always a good idea to check. So I'm just going to put that aside. And now we've got to get the disc off because the wheel bearing's in here. So we've got to take off the wheel nut here. And first of all, we need to take out this split pin. Alright, there's a couple of different ways to get these split pins out. First of all, you want to make sure it's fairly straight and in line. And you just saw that I just pulled this tab up. Now quite often these will break, so you just give it a light tap there. Now 2 different ways. One, you can put a old screwdriver or something like that into the eye end and then just tap it out that way. The other way you can do it, depending on what's going on, is a pair of vice grips. I'll just tighten that up a little bit. And then just give them a tap out. And now it comes your split pin. Now I'll be able to reuse that one, but sometimes just be aware that you might have to replace them. Alright, so we've taken out our split pin. Now we're going to take off the wheel nut here. It's a 32mm socket. I've got a rattle gun and an air compressor. Not everybody's got those tools, so it does make these jobs difficult if you don't. washer out of there. Now we've got these couple of screws here, fairly big screws. We'll go and get those off. Now normally I would use a impact driver. Again, it's a tool that not many people actually have. You can do it this way. What you need to do is put some pressure on the screw and give the screwdriver a few hits. And what that does, hopefully, is releases the thread from being jammed up. So when it's tightened up in there, it pulls the threads together, and when you hit it with the screwdriver, it helps release those threads and makes it a lot easier to get out. Impact driver is certainly a lot easier to do the job too. Okay, so after those screws have come out, these are generally fairly tight. I have given it a bit of a tap around a couple of times until I've loosened it up, and then it should just slide right off. Put that aside. Now we've got some bolts in here that we need to get out. 17mm. I'll just grab a socket. Alright, so we're going to take this one off, these two off, and this bottom one off. And again, we've got a split pin underneath here. I'll just go and get a pair of pliers. Alright, we've got our split pin out. 17mm spanner again. And you want to loosen this one off only about 3/4 of the way, about that distance. And then we're going to use our special tool, which is a tie rod end remover. I'm going to slide this piece in here underneath there, and then that piece there is going to go onto the bottom of the bolt. And then once we've got that in, I'll just tap it in. She's good. And then we just tighten them up. Alright, so what I've got is a breaker bar on here, and this is just going to screw down onto here and then push that bolt up through it, and there you go. Easy as that. Very much easier than the old style ones where you had to bash them in. I just unscrew that, put that aside, and that tie rod now is out. Okay, that looks alright. And now we've got one more bolt to get off on the bottom here. Alright, so now we've got the last bolt that's on the bottom here. It's a 19mm. And we'll probably have to do the same thing. It's got a lock nut on it, doesn't have a... Okay, and we're talking about this nut here. Again on a joint. So we will try and get our... what I did here is I couldn't get proper access to it, so I've just pulled the hub over. I've pulled the drive shaft out of there. That's allowed me to get better access here, and we should be able to again just apply pressure. And there it goes. hopefully we can get the nut off, which we can, which is really nice. Sometimes these nuts will get a little bit tight and then the joint will want to spin inside, and that makes life a little bit more difficult. And that's it. Our hub is now out, and it's these bearings in the back here that we're going to be changing over. Now what we're going to do is have a look-see at these rubbers. These are the universal joint rubbers, and just make sure there's no cracks in them, and make sure that we don't need to replace those at the same time, because to replace those is this whole job again, so it's better to do them as we have a look. Now what we do know is this particular boot up in here is cracked, and we're going to take that one off as well and replace that one at the same time. We're on our make do workbench. I'm just going to clean out around here, because there's a couple of spring circlips in here that have to come out. Now these aren't too hard to get out, they're just spring loaded in there, and all we need to do is use a couple of screwdrivers. This one's probably too big. Right. There we go. Now, once we've got that above the lip there, we should be able to just lever it out just nice and slow, because what you don't want to have happen is this go to spring and it's over there in the bushes somewhere and you can't find it. Alright, now we need to get this part of the hub off so we can get at the bearings. It's pushed from the back here, it's been pressed in, so what we're going to do is just line it up on some bricks, put a socket and give it a few smacks, and it will come out just like that. Now this is part of our bearing race here, which has obviously fallen apart, because that's not what should happen, but anyway. So now we'll take those bearings out of there, press the new ones in, and Bob's your uncle. We'll be all go. Alright, our wheel bearing race has fallen apart, so we're now going to pull it off here. This is called a bearing puller, and I just need something on top of here for that piece there to slide into two things. So I've set this up. You just need one arm. It's just three arms that go on here. Just make sure that they are secured onto the bottom, and then it should just turn. Okay, so we just felt that move. Oh. No, it didn't. Alright, we've taken off the race that was on here. We actually ended up cutting it and then just chipping it off. I couldn't get my bearing puller to get it off. Bit of a pain, but we've got that one off. Now we've got to get this one out. Now because this had the circlip in this side, it's got to pull this way. So we need to set up on the other side. And this is a special bearing puller kit. I think it's this one that we want. Yep. So we put that on there, and what that's going to do is put pressure here on the outside of this race, and when we put pressure on it, it'll pull that race through to the other side. And then we want to might go the bigger one. Yeah, let's just go the bigger one on that. And that sits on there. That sits on there. And then we've got a bolt that goes on here. Tighten that up, and then we're going to go back to using our rattle gun. We'll find the right socket for here, and then when we turn that, it'll pull against here, and that will pull that bearing out of there, presumably. So, okay, I haven't used this tool before, so hey, let's see what happens. Move very much. Get some more air. Good morning. Okay, so yesterday afternoon we tried to use our tool to get the bearing out. It wouldn't come out, I think, because it was jamming up, not coming out straight. So we've actually taken that along to one of the local machine shops, and they've pressed the old bearing out and new bearing in. This morning we've put in the circlip, the retaining clip, back in here. I was going to take that back out to show you, but it's in there very tight, so I don't want to take the risk of damaging it. Anyway, so now we'll put it all back together and we'll be good. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to now change over the boot for the power steering, for the steering rack. So we're going to change over the boot now for the steering rack. What we need to do though is we need to take off this tie rod end to get the boot off, and to do that we need to loosen this nut here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tape around here. I'll just use a bit of duct tape. I'd like to mark these as well if I can, and that tells me where that nut has got to go next time, because what happens is when you take this off, that will adjust your steering. So you need to make sure that it goes back in exactly the same place. And I'll put a bit of tape around the shaft as well. And that'll give me an indication of where that's got to go. So we've got a nut on here. Now these can be very difficult to get off, but we'll just hopefully we can get it going. And this one's going to be difficult. So I need to try and support that in there somehow. Okay, so we've cracked the nut, so we just need to loosen this off, or take it all the way off. Put that aside, and then the nut as well. Spray a bit of WD-40 on that. The side as well. So then we know exactly where our nut has got to go back onto, and that way we won't be adjusting the steering at all. So the next thing we need to do is take the clamp off the end of that. Now there should be a